Welcome to the Whole Pack, where we challenge black and white thinking in holistic pet care and dive into the controversial topics everyone's thinking about but nobody's saying out loud. I'm Sunny Gandera.
And I'm Melissa Sherman, and we are two holistic pet health practitioners here to prove that holistic care can include critical thinking, self-care, and yes, even Western medicine when needed. This is a judgment-free community we wish we'd had when we started our journey.
Hello. So today we have a really fun topic, right? Have you ever opened Instagram and instantly you feel you're behind, you're doing something wrong, you're missing a trend, you're failing at Instagram, right? Someone with a bigger following or someone that you admire is now doing something different, and it's just, how do I keep up? Where do I pivot? Where do I keep my own voice? This episode is really naming the dynamic and honestly dismantling it all practically, because we get so caught up in keeping up with what so-and-so is doing and who's doing this, and we want more followers, that sometimes we lose sight of what we're doing there. Sunny, how do you feel about this? How does this relate to you and your business?
So relatable, and I can't think of anyone who doesn't feel a similar way. But there are, of course, ways to avoid feeling this way. But I become more aware of it, right? I'm having this great morning, I feel good about what I'm doing, and then I open Instagram or Facebook, and then, within like seconds, I see someone announce that, oh, my course is sold out, or their brand looks so polished and so professional, and I'm like, should my graphics have been a little bit better maybe in that last post, and then someone else, talking about their client roster being full, and I'm like, okay, I'm trying to sell these last two, spots, and they're not sold yet, and so now all of a sudden I'm not having a good morning, right? So I'm in a spiral, like, why is it working for them, and what am I not doing that they're doing? So you start to question yourself, like, maybe my niche is wrong, or maybe my prices are too high, right? And maybe my content isn't good enough. Like, why am I not getting more likes? But what I've learned is, and we'll get that back into like what we can do about these things, of course, later in the episode, but is really that it's not really about likes and followers, right? Because when I was in my other brand, Arctic Grub, I have very few followers, but I remember my assistant she said, you have 1,500 followers and you sell more products than someone that I work with that has 75,000 followers. So it's not always about that, but it does kind of like get into that, oh, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I should lower my rates a little bit, just temporarily, just until things pick up, right? Or you're like, maybe I'm overestimating my value. We talked about this, of course, in the mindset and, episode last week and things like that. But I think that's what the comparison trap looks like, right? For me, at least from the inside. And I know it specifically because, obviously I've been in it and so have you, right? Many times. And so, but here we are. So we are talking about it today. We obviously want to hear from others too, but, I would love to hear also, like, was there any specific time where it made you feel like crap and then you realized, what am I doing? Like, why am I so like attached to these channels or this social media? We all seem to be kind of wrapped up in it. Maybe we're giving it too much power. I mean, we all kind of need to be online, right? Because we have an online business, but there are probably ways that we can manage it a little bit better so it doesn't ruin our day. And, we're going to talk about how it looks like when the comparison trap takes over, right?
Right. And some of it, I think some of it we have to remind ourselves is part of it. It's a bit of a show, right? It's not all factual. We're not telling every little bit, and neither are they. So sometimes we don't know that maybe their book closes after 5 and maybe our number is 10, and that's what the difference is too, is their books are closed, but they are booking half the amount of clients that we are for whatever that
Right.
offering is, right? So we don't always know the full picture. We start making assumptions. We go down this dangerous path of comparison that makes us feel like we're less than, we're not adequate. And it makes the whole experience of social media even more stressful because we're trying to hit these marks that are really, they're not ours. They're not
Yeah.
our goals. They're not what we're trying to achieve. We lose our strategy when we go onto social media and we start analyzing what other people are doing. Now we're in their strategy. And the thing is we're only seeing the front end of that. We're not seeing all the secrets, what's going on behind the scenes, right?
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. And another thing is, it's a great point, by the way, and that's something to really keep in mind as you're going through your comparison in your head. But I also think that the comparison trap doesn't go away. It's not a beginner problem, right? So it doesn't go away when you get more established. It gets more sophisticated as you grow. So because, of course, when you're new, you compare yourself to everyone. But when you've been doing this for a while, you start comparing yourself specifically to people who are doing what you do. And then it becomes kind of more sharper and more personal and more likely to hit somewhere real, right? So we were talking about this off camera, that this is a small community. It's tight knit. It's a collaborative in many ways, right? But it also means that the people you're comparing yourself to are often people you actually know, right?
Right.
And so maybe you've been on a Zoom call with them, or maybe they are doing work that you really admire and that you've learned from, and you truly like them. So sometimes that makes it worse because now that comparison is not abstract, right? It's personal. And somewhere underneath that comparison is the question, like, if we're both doing the same thing, why is it going better for them than me? And I think that, we talked about how women beat themselves up specifically. And I think this also maybe hits us a little bit more. So that's something to think about too. And then it could even go in a darker route to, like, is there something wrong with me? Or maybe I'm not cut out to do, or maybe I'm totally, like, I thought I could do this, but now I just don't know. I've had that thought even like recently, like sometimes your brain just takes over in the negative way. And then you wake up the next day, like, what the hell was I thinking? Like, why did I go down that road, And so we're just being very honest here on this podcast, just because I think both you and I, Melissa, we have good businesses. We're blessed with clients, and we are actually doing this full time. But that doesn't mean that we don't have any of those dark thoughts or any of the doubts and about ourselves. So we just want to share that so that other people can feel like, okay, there's nothing wrong with me. We all go through this, right? So that's why we're bringing these subjects up, because the more we can share and relate to each other, I think the stronger we become as a community, and we can become more supportive, and hence, I think, also more successful, right?
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. And there's a lot to it too that we were talking about this beforehand too, so I'm going to bring it up now, is like there's always that one person, whether it's a colleague or someone that maybe you don't know, but you know them from afar, that every time their stuff comes up, like, you feel it in your body. You just feel this whole tightening, and it's almost like this rejection is like, but why are you feeling that? Why is there such a deep comparison? So,
Right.
What can you do about that, Sunny? I mean, like, for me, what I like to do is just kind of, I'll look at their content and see, like, what is it about this that's making me feel this way? Is it because I aspire to be more like this? Is it because it's the opposite of what I want to be, but I see it successful? Like, you have to start trying to figure out, like, what it is about that content. And we'll talk about ways to, like, how do we get this out of we don't want to see it every day either, but, like, what is it? And let it be an inspiration to you rather than something that makes you crumble every time that you open up the app.
Yeah, and I think that for me, what has helped to kind of put myself in the limelight, if you will, when I get down that route, and we talked about this also offline, is that the mechanics of how comparison steals your voice. Like, so it prevents me from going there because I know that I can't afford to go and think that way. So basically, if you're naming it, it's useful, right? So the first thing it does, the comparison trap, right? It moves you from creating to performing. And I can feel that instantly when I do that. And I just don't like that. When you're in your own voice and in your own lane and you're not looking sideways at what everyone else is doing, you create from a place that, of true impulse, of like, oh my gosh, this is why I got into this and I feel so good. And then I've often had that when I've dared do that, that's when I get the most engagement because you are really genuine. So you're sharing something because it's real and you want to share it and you think it might help someone, right? You're not thinking about what do they want. You're thinking about, oh my gosh, this is something that really helped me and I'm sharing it and it seems to relate to, be relatable to others. So when you're in comparison mode, and I can see that even when other people are creating, they create from a sort of a place of strategy and anxiety. And then it becomes like, ugh, icky, right? So you're asking yourself what is performing well, what gets saves, those kinds of things that I think that then we move away from why we're doing this in the first place, if that makes sense. I don't know. I just feel like if I constantly think about, and it takes a lot of, because we talked about fear, right? It takes a lot of guts to be like, I'm going to speak in my own voice, rather than, I'm just going to do what she's doing, because that seemed to really go over well. But what we're not thinking about is, well, that's her audience, but what's my audience, right? So, and the second thing I think that comparison does is it really messes with your pricing in a way that's very hard to trace back, right? So you see someone charging less for you, something similar that you're doing, and you start to wonder, maybe I misjudged the market. So we talked about how, pricing was a way of undervaluing yourself in the other episode. And if you haven't listened to other episodes, please go ahead and do that. But you see someone charging more, maybe on the opposite side, and you're thinking, well, good for them. And then you're like, was I wrong? Like, with what I was, asked for, or should I lower it? Should I increase it? Should I have a more affordable entry point? And then we lose sight, right, of what we're trying to do. So none of those questions are really wrong to ask on the other side, but pricing is definitely worth examining. But when you're asking those questions from a place of comparison and fear, rather from a clear-eyed assessment of your own value in your own market, you almost always answer in the direction of less than you're worth, right?
Right.
So I think that's what I know when I know that I'm in that sort of bad place, and also less than the animals in your client's case deserve from a practitioner who's fully invested, rather than being sort of quietly resentful, right? So undercharging, as we talked about, it's not generous. It's, I've said it and I will keep saying it. It's undercharging. I feel for me, it's a form of disrespect towards yourself and ultimately toward the people you serve, because you can't stay generous when you're running on empty, and you can't stay in this work long term if the work doesn't sustain you. So the comparison trap, and you see how all these now I'm talking a lot, but I'm very passionate about this too. But you see how all those subjects are just tied in, the last few episodes we've done, and how they are connected and how they kind of show up in our work. And ultimately, we all want to serve animals and we all want to have a successful business, but we do have to work on ourselves. And the comparison trap is somewhere we don't want to be for a long time. We can all fall into it once in a while, but let's try to pick ourselves up and think about these things that I just said and be like, oh no, I don't want to stay there.
Well, yeah, and I see a lot of people pivoting, right? They have a strategy, but then they start feeling this pressure to pivot.
Right.
They're pivoting for the wrong reason. They're not pivoting because it's aligned with their strategy, their business, their goals. They're pivoting because everyone else is doing it. And that's the thing, is people don't want to work with you because you're like everyone else. They want to work
Exactly.
with you because you're you. So if you stay aligned with what your goal is, what your mission is, what your beliefs are, and stop trying to follow trends. And it happens a lot, I think, in our industry. You see everyone's sharing about this one topic, or this one study came out, and then you see hundreds of posts
Yeah.
on this one thing. And sure, there's something behind, everybody's not, all of our clients, our potential clients aren't all following the same creators, but it gets a little flooded, I guess. But
Yeah.
there's this pressure to keep up with that. Well, they're talking about this, I have to talk about it too, and we don't have to, right?
Yeah.
We don't have to broadcast and have a comment on everything that comes up in our industry. It should be things that are aligned with you and your business, right?
Yeah, and that's actually, I will pat myself on the shoulder there, because I've always been like, if I see everyone going in one direction, I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. Like, it's something in me that just, I don't know if it's because of where I grew up in the culture where everyone's like in a pack, like Norwegians are very like, they do the same, they eat the same. And it was just like always when I was 18, I was like, I gotta go, like, because it was just not genuine to me. So yeah, that's one thing but I do see that, and that's a great point. And not to say that whatever subject it is not worth bringing up, but it's like, is that really what you want to talk about? Or is it because you think, oh, this is popular now and I got to get more followers? And then again, here comes the inauthenticity, right? So anyway, we've spoken about what it shows up. Is there anything else you want to say of how it shows up, Melissa?
It shows up in little ways where I do have to stop and pause and question. Like, I mean, the algorithm itself is not going to reward this behavior. And, if that's what you're trying to do is you're chasing the algorithm, like, that's not how to do it.
Oh
right?
gosh,
Like,
no.
right? Because, like, there's something about, if you look at your favorite creators, I mean, I know for myself, my favorite creators they're not doing all the weird trending thing. They're not just like commenting on someone's post and just nodding. I know that works for people, but like, it's their own voice. They talk about different topics. They're not just talking about one single niche. They kind of fluctuate what they're talking about. It's them.
Yeah.
So, like, show up as yourself in whatever content you're creating, I think is going to have more of an impact than trying to do what, Jane Doe is doing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a topic I think we'll bring up in another episode, is more on the marketing side of things, like how people are really scared to niche down and do things differently. But then that's how you get noticed, right? That's when people are like, oh, Melissa does, animal communication for cats specifically who are XYZ. I mean, the further you niche down, right, the more people are like, wow, other than like, oh yeah, I help dogs get happy and healthy, right? That's
Right.
very safe, but it's not really speaking to anyone. But that's on a different topic, but it's a very good point. And so let's talk about what we can do about it. So I'll start with, and this was also, you mentioned that also before we got on. We have full discussions, guys, before we get on here. We should start taping our back behind the scenes, because we do actually, we are passionate about these topics, and we're having so much fun talking to each other and just realizing, oh my gosh, I'm not alone. Feeling like this. And that's, I think, what we want to create with the whole Pack podcast, right? It's really like, yeah, you're not different. You're not weird. We are all feeling this and we're all in it together. But so the first thing I do, like when you want to try to do something about how do I stop comparing myself, right, is, do a social media audit. And not of your own social media account, but the accounts that you follow, right? So the questions I want you to ask about each one is, when I see this person's content, do I feel expanded or do I feel diminished? Like, expanded means like you feel inspired, you feel curious, you kind of feel connected to this person, right? And diminished means you feel kind of small, or what you were talking about, Melissa, earlier, like behind, or like something's wrong with you.
Yeah.
And the ones that makes you feel constantly diminished, they need to come out of your feed. And that's not because there's anything wrong with them or those people, but because the information that pours into your eyes and your brain every morning really shapes how you feel. It's like they say, don't watch the news the first thing in the morning about the death and the destruction of the world, right? Then you're going to feel, oh, all people are evil. And you start to think about all these things. So the same goes for social media, because that has become our media now, right? Our TV. So really, what you feed yourself, shapes what you believe about yourself and what's possible for you. So you have to be deliberate about that. I've become better at it, but there are days when I'm just tired and I'm just scrolling, and then all of a sudden I see and I get into a rabbit hole. I'm like, no, I'm going to log off, right? I mean, I think we all can relate to that, right? And that's not the same as living in a bubble. I mean, you can still follow people who challenge you or further along, which I do too, but who do things differently, of course. But there's a difference, I think, between content that challenges you to grow and the content that triggers you to shrink. Right.
I agree. And I mean, I've had discussions with people about this, and I think there's part of it is, well, I have to see what my competitors are doing. I need to see what other, whatever industry it is, I have to see what they're doing so I can keep up with that. So of course, market research, but you can do market research specific time of the day. It doesn't have to constantly be in your feed. So it depends which social media channel you're on. Some of them you can snooze for 30 days. You can unfollow. You can make it so you're still following them, but it's not popping up in your feed. So like just depending which channel it is, if you still want to follow and support that creator, but if you're feeling any of these things like what Sunny described, that's when maybe you need to think about, okay, so where should they be in my feed? Because really, social media is a challenging place for a lot of us. A lot of us are sensitive. A lot of us aren't really, we don't want to be showmen, right? Like we're not trying to be anything but just promote our business, let people know what we're out here selling, what we have to offer to people. So all that to say is know what channel that you're on. Try to isolate the ones that lift you up and favor those, put those as your friends. And the ones that kind of deplete your energy, put them in a different category so they're not the first thing that you see. Because that is something the algorithm will remember. If you went down a rabbit hole and you followed this to this to this to this and all that engagement, it's like, oh, well, you like that. So it's going to show you more of that stuff that deflates you. And that's the last thing that you need or want, right?
Right.
So
yeah.
It's really protecting your peace when you go onto social media is going to help you navigate this and not lose who you are in the process, because that's the thing that we do so much. Is
so hard.
We compare and then we try to take that as inspiration as, well, I need to go down that way because they're so successful. When we know this much of the story, just like people know that much of our story too. Like they may look at our picture and think a certain thing, but behind the scenes, they don't really know everything that goes into it. Other channels that we might have, because that's another thing with bookings. Maybe you have a class coming up, it has 10, you have an email list that's going out. Your social media channels aren't seeing who's signing up through your email channels. So
yeah, absolutely.
It's very deceptive. And even knowing this, it's easy for us to just be like, all I see is this, so this is the truth. And that's where we lose ourselves.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Speaking of the email list, that's where I focus my, I just started rewriting again for, my Not Your Average Dog Health Coach. I do constantly for the food, and I just all of a sudden I got a new client just from the first email I sent out. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so dumb. Like, why am I focusing on social media the whole time? Because you get drowned, there. But in your email list is your specific, people that have actually gone to the effort of signing up and giving you their email address. We're going to talk about that on a separate episode, but that's a huge thing. That's social media isn't everything. Yes, we have to maybe be on there here and there, but that brings me to my tip again, and similar to what you said, is really just content batching, right? So it's hard to implement, but basically dedicating specific times to creating content, and outside of those blocks, you're not on the app. So I've tried that sometimes. I'm like, I just go online when I have to post something. that doesn't mean that I don't make an effort to say, I want to see what you're posting and I want to support you. I want to comment, I want to like your post because I really believe in what you're doing, right? So that can be part of it, right? So identify maybe a few accounts, like I want to see what's up, like I really get inspired by that content and I really enjoy it. But so basically, you're not scrolling or comparing, you're living your actual life, which is full of the real experiences and observations and encounters with animals and people that make your content interesting and specific and worth reading in the first place. So identifying those few people that you just want to kind of support, and then try not to be online and go down the rabbit hole like I did the other day and start looking at mukbang and all this. I mean, it's like, why is this showing up in my feed? But like you say, you have to be very specific with what you're clicking on, right? But yeah, I mean, I think that another thing that someone actually said this to me and it stuck with me, that the more time you spend on social media comparing yourself to other people, the less content you have to make, and the less you make from your own experience, the more generic your content becomes, right? And the more generic that becomes, and the less it'll perform, because people aren't like feeling it. People can feel it. I believe it. It's like, whether it's like when I've posted things like, oh, I just got to post something, and it's like, no, you don't. You do it when you have something to share that you feel can help people. So, but I do it because, oh my God, I haven't posted in 5 days, and I see, oh my God, Melissa's posted twice a day now for like the last week. You can, get into that route, right? So. Yeah. Anyway, there's a lot. But I think that, the antidote to comparison is not more social media, it's less of it, right. I think. And that's not to say it's all bad. I mean, I do enjoy some parts of social media. We really get to connect with our colleagues and then, send them notes and say, hey, how are you doing? Because I think without it, we wouldn't talk as often. So there are positives too, but just don't use it to compare yourself to others.
Yeah, and our work isn't meant to look like everyone else's work. So that's something too, is maybe taking time to create before you go and engage. I mean, that's not to say you can't take inspiration from somebody. So
Right.
taking inspiration is totally different than like hijacking their strategy and trying to emulate what they're doing because it looks like success. It looks like success because it's them, it's their voice with their followers. So we need to find our own lane. And what is that? It's our own voice. It's our thoughts, our ideas, and showing up. And this modality that we work in, whether we're animal communicators, nutritionists, chefs, it requires trust. It requires just a level of engagement and vulnerability, and it's not about volume, right? Like what you mentioned, you haven't posted in 5 days, but so and so is posting twice a day. It doesn't mean that theirs is better. Sometimes people just get really inspired and start posting
Right.
things too. Like I've done that too. Like
Me
sometimes
too.
on Saturday I have my schedule, but like I'm outside, something really inspiring happens. So like I'll double or even triple post, but like I had my anchor post for the day. That was my minimum. And then sometimes, if you see me posting more, that's what happened is like
Yeah.
I went out, something really inspired me, and like yes, I could have scheduled it down the road, but like I couldn't wait to share it.
Yeah, I've seen those and I love those posts because they are really refreshing, and I just know they come from like a place of inspiration for you,
Yeah.
and that's what's inspiring to view as well. And I think that doubling up on what you're saying, that the comparison trap is loudest when you're furthest away from yourself. And that's so hard because especially when you're getting started and you're really like, I wouldn't say like desperate to get clients or whatever, but you start to get disconnected from why you started this, and you've been in your head and in the metrics and in the strategy for so long that you've forgotten what you actually believe in, and then you start to see these other people. Oh my God, they're so busy and they're out there doing stuff, and here we go, right? So it's really like you're saying, when you're inspired, when I'm in my own lane, and I'm working with a client and it's going really well, and or I may be just with my own dogs, Tofu and Oslo, you're with your pack of animals, which I'm so jealous of. And you remember exactly like why animals matter, and why this work matters. Then you don't compare yourself to anyone, right? You're just happy, and then you share from that space.
Yeah. And that's really what it's all about. I mean, that's my favorite part of social media. I mean, it's not all bad. I know we all curse it a lot. We all wish we couldn't be on it. But my business would not exist without social media. So,
Yep.
for me, it's important. And so like I have to have a more positive relationship with it. And that means just being flexible, being able to call out when I know it doesn't feel right, or when it is too much, is like taking a break. It's like any relationship. Like I have to, it's not communicating back to me, but but like just having that relationship where you can say, okay, like this feels really gross. Why? Taking a step back and just kind of figuring that out, getting back on your path. Because 9 times out of 10, when it feels really icky, it's you lost your way somewhere, and maybe you let some things into your feed that are just not honoring what you're there for. And it,
Right.
that's really the important part, is just always coming back to your why, which is something that we talked about in a previous episode too, is like remembering your why, remembering why you're there. And it doesn't mean you can't evolve. My social media from post 1 to today, totally different.
Yeah. I think
That's
everybody's
okay,
yes,
right? Like,
of course.
it's just, you don't need to be a chameleon every day. You don't need to put someone else's skin over yours to like work and be, to spread your word.
Absolutely. And it reminds me when you were talking about, working on yourself. Someone was saying when you're grateful, there's no room for any other feelings. So that's why practicing gratitude is so important. Like I do that every morning and every night when I'm getting in my head, and it's just like, and the same is with comparison. When you're present and doing your own thing, there is no room for comparison to get foothold, right? So that's why like bringing up those positive feelings and thinking about everything I'm grateful for. I have healthy dogs. I have, I get to do what I love, and I had the guts to do it. And yes, is it hard? Yes, but what's the alternative? And then there's no room for anything else. So I think that really goes back to, the comparison comes in when you lose the thread of yourself. So yeah, that's the most practical tool I think we can offer anyone who's struggling with this. When you notice yourself in that spiral, don't try to logic your way out of it, right?
Yeah.
Or you audit your feed or rewrite your bio, and it's not really about that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And about your gratitude, even on tough days, even if you can't, you feel like you can't see one thing that you're grateful for, find 3 things you're grateful for. And it could be the simplest thing. Like I woke up this morning. I mean, it could be the simplest thing, and just go from there. Because I know sometimes when we get in our head too much about things, we can't find the good that's just abundant. It's all around us, because we have that lens of whatever fear, failure, imposter syndrome. We'll have that lens on, and then it makes it harder to see those things. So really just taking time every day, and even if it's at the end of the day, you lay down in your bed, 3 things that you're grateful for, 3 things that happened that were good.
Yes, absolutely. For sure. And so to end this episode, nobody else can do or say whatever you're saying or doing exactly the way you're doing it. Just think about that. I think I shared this with you earlier, Melissa, but someone was saying like, well, what if your favorite Italian restaurant said, oh, I'm not going to open an Italian restaurant. There's like gazillions out there, right? I mean, we all share in a specific way that will be landing in a specific way, maybe in a better way with someone else. So that is the voice that the social media is trying to drown out, but that is the only voice that really matters. So don't be scared. to share how you feel, because we are going to feel it, that, oh my gosh, this really came from a place of you really care, and from a place of passion. So yeah, don't compare yourself. And we all do it, yes, but you don't have to listen to that voice.
Yes. And make sure that you moderate your own social media feed.
Yes.
And just, you have control there. Don't, if you feel that it's too many negative feelings come, or your body is dysregulated every time you open it, you can control your feed. And that's where a great place to start is just get the things that inspire you in front of you and move through it that way.
For sure. So as always, we want to hear from you guys. How does comparison show up for you? Has it been, basically taking over lately, or are you doing things that help you stay on track? We want to hear your tips, and we hope you found this episode helpful. Don't forget to follow us on The Whole Pack, wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, and also, of course, on Substack and social media. We are at The Whole Pack Podcast. So we will see you next time for another juicy episode. So stay tuned, and we really appreciate you tuning in. And until next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Before we go, we want to remind you that the information shared on The Whole Pack is for educational purposes only and is not intended to replace veterinary medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult with your veterinarian before making any changes to your pet's diet, supplements, or healthcare routine. Every animal is unique, and what works for one may not be appropriate for another. We're here to empower you with knowledge, but your vet is your partner in your pet's individual care.